Hey, what's up everybody? In this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to take an eccentric cam like this and fully constrain it to an axle. We're also going to be taking something like a follower rod, and we can see this follower rod has a pad that's going to go to the bottom of it, and there's going to be a topper that goes on top, and this entire assembly is going to be going and sliding through this hole here and riding on top of that cam that's going to be situated right there on the axle. Anyway, that's kind of where we're going with this. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and create this as its own little sub-assembly first. All right, so I'm going to come up here, go to Constraint, go to Insert, and I'm going to be taking this rod right here and inserting it, okay, into this follower pad right here. Taking a look, going over to the back side of it, I can see that that did not fully go into it. Remember, you still have the ability to use a solution like this, okay, and hit apply, okay, and now that has been put in there. All right, so we're all set and ready to go. All right, so now what we can do is come out here, go to Constraint, and before I do that, if it's ever the case where this is sticking upside down, you can always come over here and go to Free Rotate, and you can pick on this and you can flip this over like so and say OK. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull this over. Okay, go into my constraint, and we're going to use mate. So if I get close enough here to the actual cylinder, okay, you can see how that axis is there. I'm going to go ahead and pick when I see that axis, come over here to the hole, and I'm going to go ahead and pick on that. All right, so our follower pad needs to be down, okay, and below it. So I'm going to come here and start looking at my different solutions. All right, you can always make the switch with that. All right, so now we can see that that pad is down. We're going to go ahead and say apply and go ahead and cancel out. All right, so this is going to be able to go up and down. If we look close enough, we can also see that that is able to spin. Okay, we'll take care of that here in just a little bit. All right, so now we're ready for the cam. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm probably going to remove this wheel, all right, just so I can see the end of this. It's just going to make things a little bit easier. All right, what we can do is just turn the visibility off. We're not just going to delete it. All right, so if I pick on wheel, right, now I can come over here to my browser, and whatever's highlighted in blue, that's where it's going to be at. So I can right click on it, come down, uncheck visibility, right, and now I've just removed that wheel temporarily. I can always turn the visibility back on a little bit later. All right, so now I'm going to go to constrain. I'm making sure I'm in my mate type. I'm going to come to the inside of this actual hole where I can see the axle. I'm going to pick on it, come over here, go to my axle itself. All right, make sure I can see that axle. So I can go ahead and pick on it. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and cancel. All right, so right now we can see that that axle is able to totally spin independently from the cam. Cam itself is able to spin, and it's also able to slide and go down. All right, so there's a couple things that we can do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the actual cam. All right, and this is why it's important when you go to do your extrusion, making sure this is symmetrical. All right, if I say OK, and now come out here and go into origin, I'm going to be looking for a plane that's going to go right down through the middle of that extrusion. I'm just going to pull this over where you can see it a little bit better. All right, we can see that that plane is going right down through the center of it. If I did not extrude that the way I was showing in my video tutorial, let me just switch it to here. Now when we come here to that XY plane, now we can see how it's off to one side of it. So it's absolutely critical when you're extruding your parts, making sure that they are symmetrical extrusions when it comes to cams. So I'm going to switch this back to symmetrical. Now I'm going to go up and find that plane that's going through the center of it. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Okay, while I'm here, I'm also going to come up here and find a plane that's going to go right down the center of it, just like so. Let me just orbit this over where you can see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn the visibility on for that. So I have a plane going right down the center of it, okay, splitting the difference with the extrusion, and then the other plane is going to be going straight down just like so. I'm going to go ahead and return back to my assembly. Okay, now I have some planes to work with. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm also going to go ahead and double click on the axle. Going to my origin folder, I'm going to be finding the plane that's going right down the center of it, and you can kind of see that. I'm just going to just zoom in here. Okay, it's going right down the center of it. I'm going to go ahead and turn the visibility on. Okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to go ahead and do a return. All right, so with that being done, okay, what I'm going to do is come here to constrain. I'm in my mate type. I'm going to come here to this work plane right here, pick on that, and then come to this work plane that's going through the axle. All right, and you can see how those are going to line up. You can switch this up if you'd like by using the solution. Okay, it's going to be toggling between whether it's going to be an aligned or an unaligned, or I'm sorry, a mate or a flush. All right, those are both working for me, so I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. All right, so with that done, I'm now going to come here to this flat disk. Okay, go into my origin. All right, I'm going to be making sure that one of these planes is on that's going to either look like this or this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the visibility on and return back to the assembly. Okay, double clicking on the follower rod, making sure I have a plane that's going right down through the center of it. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on and return back to the assembly. We're doing that because right now, if we take a look, we can see that the disk is totally turning independent to the actual rod. I want those to work together. So I'm going to go to Constraint, Mate Type, pick on one work plane, and then pick on the other. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hit Apply. And now when I go and I grab this, now I see that they are both spinning together. All right, so we're looking pretty good. All right, so now what we're going to be doing is making sure that this cam is directly below this pad. In order to do that, coming up here, going to Constraint, I'm going to be using the mate type. I'm going to be picking on one work plane and then picking on the other. Okay, if we take a look at this, we can now see that those two are directly underneath each other. Okay, if we simply hit flush, now this has been turned around, it's still going to be working exactly the same. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and cancel. All right, so let's just see how this is working. Okay, if I turn back on my wheel, all right, I can find wheel over here. I'm going to turn that back on with visibility. If I grab my wheel, we're now going to be seeing that that cam is going to be spinning right along with the axle. The cam is not able to move, okay, back and forth. It has been glued onto that axle. All right, here at the top, this is not able to spin. It's only able to go up and down, which means we are now ready for our transitional constraint. If I come up here to Constraint, you're going to see there's a tab here called Transitional. Here's how this works. I'm going to be picking on the bottom flat part of this pad. Okay, and then taking a look here, I'm going to be coming here to an edge, okay, of the cam. And when I do that, I can now see that that pad is dropped. It's now making contact with the surface of that cam. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now if we have done this correctly, when I spin this wheel, we're now going to be seeing that relationship happening, okay, between that follower pad and the actual cam. Okay, the last part of this that I would have to do is come up here, okay, to my topper, which is going to be my LTHS logo. Going to insert, okay, and then here at the bottom of the hole, I can select that, okay, and taking this up here, putting it at the top of the rod. I'm going to hit apply. All right, and this is now able to spin independently from that. So we can double click on the topper, okay, go into my origin, find a plane that's going to go right down through the center of it, turn the visibility on, and return back to the assembly. Okay, this is when I could use mate again. Grab this plane and this plane. It's going to get those to align. I hit apply. All right, that guy's not able to move. All right, and this is when we can grab the wheel and we can see that there is that relationship between them. Now, if I want to come out here and actually see this work, this is when I could come in and use my angular constraint, first solution. I could pick on this work plane that's going through the wheel. If it's not there, no problem. You can double click it, go into origin, find that plane, right click and turn it on, hit visibility. Back into the assembly. I can go into my angular constraint, first solution. I'm going to say I want there to be an angle constraint between, let's make sure I'm out of that. Here we go, let's try it again. Between this work plane here and this flat surface here. I'm going to make sure it's 0 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Okay, in order to animate this, we're going to find that angle constraint that we just used. Remember, if you're struggling finding it, just pick on the wheel. Okay, we can see that angle constraint is there. We can right click, go to drive, And we're going to say we want this to be 2 full turns. So that would be 720 degrees. I hit the play button, and now you can actually see that animate. Right? Sometimes with the animations, it does get hung up. No problem. Okay, we can always just delete the actual angle, and we can crank this by hand. We can see it's actually going to work. All right, so that's a transitional constraint for an eccentric cam and a follower rod.